Who wants to learn how to make some Fakemon? Hey all you nerds, Gabe, aka Froopy Art here, and I'm really excited to be starting this brand new series. If you clicked on this video, odds are you have at least a passing interest in creating some Fakemon of your very own. Now, I finally wrapped the narrative Pokemon Amber series. It's pretty awesome, go watch it if you haven't. And after creating over 160 new designs, I finally have the time to go through the process of creating Fakemon. So this series is going to be divided into 3 parts. In this video, we'll go over the crucial concept stage and all of the vital steps that you need to do before you ever put pencil to paper. The next 2 videos will go over the design process and then rendering. And as tempting as it may be to jump ahead to those, you need to start with the conceptual stage first. But without further ado, let's start this lesson. Don't just jump into drawing. I know that feels like the thing to do, right? You want to grab a pencil and paper or drawing tablet and start making Fakemon. And I can hear some of you now. Of course you should just start drawing right away. That's how you make stuff, Gabe, you dumb idiot. And first off, ouch, rude. And secondly, you certainly can just start off that way. And I'd be lying if I said that in a time crunch I haven't been forced to just start scribbling right away first thing. But if you want a good and impactful design, you gotta slow your roll. So instead, we're going to take a breath, take some time, and find some inspiration. Points of inspiration. Points, plural. In my humble opinion, a quality Pokemon design must have at least 2 points of inspiration. You may say, oh, but I just want to make a Fakemon based on this one thing that I like. And I will say to you, not good enough. All right, that's how you end up with boring designs that look like a cartoon version of an animal, right? And the last thing you want is a boring design. I'm looking at you, Finian, Seal, Greedent, Ducklet, Stunky. And you don't want to hang out with those Pokemon. I mean, Stunky's all right because his face is like a little butt. The rest of these designs, though, they're pretty beige. You want something more exciting than that. Okay, we can all agree that you should have at least 2 points of inspiration, but typing alone is not an inspiration. Grabbing an animal and slapping a Pokemon type on it is just not enough. That's how you end up with Litleo. Is that what you want? Do you want Litleo? No, of course not. Now, there is a bit of a caveat here. Slapping a type on an animal? Boring. But if you take the time to think about how that typing may affect the animal, the different habitat that it may live in, and what new behavior it may have because of it, all right, that's where you start to develop something a bit more interesting, right? Polar bear plus ice type? Boring. But what about a big frozen booger, eh? And then a big frozen booger beard, yeah? All right, that's pretty good. Or there's a crow and it's steel type. But it's actually a dark knight. No, not that dark knight. Yeah, that. And who knows what else you could come up with, especially when you bring in a secondary typing. But I will say, in general, you don't want the typing to be a driving force for the concept. Ideally, in most cases, the typing should arise naturally from the other points of inspiration that you have. So, let's look at where to find inspiration. Now, I'm sure that some jerk who thought they were being more helpful than they actually were told you that there's inspiration all around you. You just need to open your eyes and look. And they're not wrong, all right? But let's lay out some better examples that are a little easier to go after. Animals, obviously. All right, the vast majority of Pokemon are based on real animals for a reason. Most Pokemon should look like they belong in the wild, and animals do that. Now, it's always good to take a look at some more obscure animals, something that Game Freak hasn't done yet. But I'll say, at the same time, it's not like we don't already have a bunch of turtles and frogs and snakes and whatnot. So do whatever you like. Animals, they're always a good jumping off point. Nature. Go outside. Take a walk. Touch some grass. Not only is this a good way to clear your head and think, but you may be inspired. You might see an interesting local insect, weird cracks in the sidewalk, a raccoon who is, I don't know, like bad at hiding, who knows. there's always neat stuff out in the outside world. Objects. Now, I personally am not the biggest fan of Objectmon. They just rarely land with me, but there sure are a lot of objects existing in the world just waiting to inspire you, and even if it isn't directly an Objectmon, aspects of everyday items may just give you an interesting idea. Get inspired by the action of scissors, the bendy loops of a charging cable, the writing and erasing of a pencil. I mean, these are just things in front of me on my desk. I don't know, the floor, whatever, things. Look at them. Okay, next. Myths and legends. All right, this is where we get to the real meat and potatoes. First off, there are so many fantastical stories from all around the world that are just begging to be adapted into Fakemon. Heck, I mean, that's kind of what I did with the Palean region. I mean, that whole dex is just based on Jurassic Park and other prehistoric animals. But secondly, and far more importantly, these stories and myths and little bits of folklore usually come with their own important themes. Those associated themes are where the real meat is at. That's the bang for your buck that you want. That's where you get your Mawiles, Orbeetles, and Gyarados. That's the good stuff. And of course, even beyond that, there's inspiration everywhere. All right, look at different cultures and customs, emotions, relationships, and I don't know, even weird abstract concepts. There's inspiration to be found out there. You just need to stop yourself, put down the pencil, and take a little bit of time to find it. So, just as an example, we're going to be walking through all of the design steps with a couple of the Pokemon that I created for the Palean region. Starting with the inspiration. Now, I was lucky enough to receive a great concept from James Gabor. I'm going to paraphrase, but here's the general idea. Prehistoric platypus. All right, we've discovered a few different species, and they were, really freaking big. Also, when people first brought dead platypus specimens back to England, people thought they were poorly pieced together taxidermy abominations, which is pretty understandable. These monotremes, egg-laying mammals, look like a beaver and a duck got haphazardly stitched together. So, we're going to also have some slight taxidermy Frankenstein inspirations in there as well. And there's one thing I'm going to have to keep in mind with this, as I would with any multi-stage design, and that is, each stage is a different species. It would be all too easy to do a little platypus and then just make a bigger platypus. So I'll need to think up how to make a two-stage design where they both feel distinct. You don't want to design a Palmy line. All right, I love Palmy, but as I was playing through the game and it kept evolving, I was like, what is the point of this? So don't do that. For our platypus, what can we do to differentiate things? Well, obviously our second stage has to be very big and Frankenstein-y, a big, friendly, pieced-together monster. So what if when it's little, it hasn't quite gotten its pieces together correctly just yet? Looking at the baby platypus pups, or puggles as they are ridiculously called, they're just these round little balls of rolls. So maybe our monster is just a ball of pieces. We'll play with that idea in the next episode for sure. Now, there are a couple last-minute things that you should be thinking about as you get ready to move into the design stage. These are bigger picture questions that you should have a handle on before putting pencil to paper. Class of Pokemon design. This is kind of an odd phrase, class of design. But what I mean by that is, where does your Pokemon fit amongst the different groups of Pokemon? Is it a starter Pokemon, an early route bug or mammal, the regional bird, pseudo-legendary, box legendary, mythical, Pika-clone? Is it an edgelord, a little cutie pie? A lot of these, are not hard and defined classes, but it's best to know if your design should feel similar to other designs or if you're bucking the trends and shooting for something completely new. Whatever you decide, it's best to know this before you continue, as there are certain design conventions that you should be aware of. Starters, they're adorable, simple, and approachable. Legendaries are relatively complex and awe-inspiring. I mean, there's too many details to go into here, but you get the point I'm making. Have an idea of the class of Pokemon you want. Now, another equally important aspect to keep in mind is that you are aiming for wide subjective appeal. Wide subjective appeal, what does that even mean? Well, you're creating art And art is subjective. I mean, it would be great if I could just create something that was objectively awesome and every person would love it. But that's just not how the world works. So, the aim of the game with Pokemon is to create a design that the vast majority of people will find appealing or at the very least palatable. Now, you're not gonna make everybody happy, alright? Take it from someone who has created a butt ton of Fakemon and put them on YouTube for human peoples to react to. No matter how perfect your design is, there's always gonna be someone who decides to hate on it. That's just how it goes. But it's here, at the start, in this conceptual stage, where we will be laying the groundwork for the rest of the design. So before you continue on with the process, you'll have to seriously ask yourself, can I continue with this idea so it actually has wide subjective appeal? Because if you're leaning into something that's too edgy, violent, nonsensical, cutesy, or even just too niche, you need to be prepared for the possibility that your Pokemon just won't register with people. So always assess your ideas and tweak the concept if needed. Okay, so you're feeling good about your concept, now what? Reference, reference, reference. Get yourself some reference images. There are some people out there who feel that you should be able to pull all the imagery needed straight out of your own head whenever you make art. That is dumb and unnecessary. Go and find some reference images that will aid you. These could be related to your concept, perhaps you're using a specific animal or myth, alright, so go find some photos or illustrations so you can have a visual reminder. Like, oh, scorpions glow under black light. Neat, gotta incorporate that. Or, dang, the pattern on these Alebrije are neat as heck, let's try and work some of that in. The reference images can also be more mood-based. Perhaps there is a feeling that you want to evoke, so you just want to find some art that puts you in the right headspace. Or maybe it's just a great color palette that feels appropriate. And the last bit of reference image that you should never feel ashamed about using are other Pokemon designs. This is especially important when you think about the different classes of Pokemon. So if you're making a starter, grab some images of other starters. Legendary Pokemon? Get those instead. Having these close by to check with will ensure that you are matching the established design conventions for that class of Pokemon. And the last reason you may want to grab some Pokemon art is, odds are you're trying to match the official Pokemon art style, so being able to reference the line weight, color palettes, and shading and whatnot will only help you. So go and get yourself some references. As an example, let's take a look at the images that I pulled while creating the 2-stage Ancient Platypus line. First up, there are our little Puggles, so I can reference their roly-poly bodies, and of course the extinct giant platypus, some Frankenstein-y stuff, and while looking around, I just stumbled across this stuffed Pokemon Frankenstein together thing, which is just that right combination of cute and ghastly that I want. And while I was at it, I threw together a color palette that may work for the design. We'll see. And that's it, folks. And I know that was a lot, but after that, I hope you see the importance of having at least 2 points of inspiration and getting some helpful reference images together. Thanks for listening to me ramble on about character concepts. I love making Fakemon with all of you, and it's just great to share the process with any other aspiring artists. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you found this helpful, and in the next episode of this series, we will finally put pencil to paper and work on the actual design. Alright, later nerds.